Last week we talked about the baby Jesus growing up to be a boy of 12 years old, and he took a trip. And you might remember that story. If you don't, go back and watch it because it's the one right before this when he got lost. He was left alone at the temple. And he grew up in the carpenter shop with his daddy, Joseph. Tonight we're talking about a different part of Jesus when he grew up to be a man. Do you see how big he is? He has hair. He's about 30 years old, right, Mr. David?
That's right.
And we're going to teach you a song about Jesus where he grew up. He grew up in Nazareth in Galilee. And we're going to sing the song one time, so you listen very carefully. And I'm going to tell you what these words say. Jesus needed friends to follow him. So he said these words, "Come, follow me." Can you say that? Come, follow me. He wanted them to leave their boats and come with him to fish for people, not just fish, people's hearts. Okay, so here's our song. Listen carefully. Ready to sing it? Are you ready to listen? Okay, take 10. Ready?
Jesus grew up in Nazareth of Galilee, Nazareth of Galilee, Nazareth of Galilee. Jesus grew up in Nazareth of Galilee. He said, "Come follow me."
Second time, you sing it too.
Jesus grew up in Nazareth of Galilee, Nazareth of Galilee, Nazareth of Galilee. Jesus grew up in Nazareth of Galilee. He said, "Come follow me."
Good job, Mr. David. Did you see Mr. David's making a shaker out of this fish tambourine? Do you like that? The Sea of Galilee had water in it that was not salted. Is that right, Mr. David?
That's right.
It was a freshwater lake, but they still fished there. And Jesus' friends were fishing when he said, "Come, follow me." Do any of you have friends? What do you do with your friends? Do they sometimes come over and play with you? Or do you invite them to your birthday party? Would it be a sad party if you didn't have any friends? I think so. Jesus needed some friends. He said, "I need helpers." I wonder what he needed help with. That's what we're going to talk about tonight, okay? Have you ever made a great big mess and dumped out a bunch of blocks and your mama said, "Clean up, time to pick up"? Have you ever done it all by yourself? That would take a really, really long time. If you have somebody to help you pick up, it's so much easier to have help. And Jesus needed help with his ministry, telling people all the good news about God and all the stories and sharing the good news that he had to share with everyone. He wanted a lot of helpers to help him with that. Well, one time Jesus was walking on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, and he said, "Simon, Andrew, come follow me." So then he had two friends. Isn't that right, Mr. David?
Mm-hmm.
And then he saw James and John, and they were in the boat. They were the sons of Zebedee, and they left their father, and they came and followed Jesus. So 2 friends and 2 friends makes 4 friends. And he had even more after that. But they all helped walk with him and talk with him. And I wanted to show you this picture of some of Jesus' friends with a big net. You see those fish in the net? They don't fish with a pole like we do sometimes, do they? And do you see the white sail right here? That's called a sailboat. And that's the kind of boat that people sailed in long ago, back in Jesus' time. That's the fish that they caught and they ate it. That's what they did for a living. And Jesus said, "Stop doing that now. Instead of catching fish in the net, now we're going to be talking to people and catching and winning people and their lives and their hearts for God."
I'd like to show you this book that we found about this boat that they found in the Sea of Galilee, and they're pretty sure it was from around the time that Jesus lived. So it's a whole lot like a boat that he would have sailed in and that his followers would have fished in. And two brothers were out looking through all the mud and silt around the coastline because there had been a drought. And the Sea of Galilee had receded down, and they were looking for any kind of treasure that they might could find. And they found a bunch of coins. Here's some pictures of the coins that they found. And these are similar to the coins that the widow may have put into the collection box, the 2 mites that the widow had. We'll be talking about that more later, about the widow's 2 mites. But while they were looking for these mites, they dug down into the mud and they felt something that felt like it was wood. And they started digging it out by hand, and this is what they found. And they scooped all of the mud out and they packed it in some foam material to protect it so that they could get it to a museum. And today, that same boat now in the museum, they dedicated a whole museum to the boat, and they built a special container for it so that it'll be preserved for a long time. So Ms. Cheryl found this fishing box on Amazon. It's a Melissa and Doug tackle box and fishing pole and scoop. And so we're going to kind of do an unboxing. Ms. Cheryl's already opened it for us, but we're going to show you all the pieces. Here is a fishing rod, and you can twist it and make the line go up and down. And if we throw our line into the water, we might just catch a fish.
Woo, look at that.
All right. And then once we catch our fish, we have to reel him in.
Wow, it really works.
Do y'all ever go fishing with moms and dads? This kind of fish you'll catch. A catfish. He'd be good for our supper.
Yummy, yummy.
We have a catfish. We have trout and bass. And some of your moms and dads may know these fish better than I do. But there's several different kinds there. We have a ruler so we can measure it, make sure that it's long enough to keep. See that? And then here's our net so that we can scoop them up out of the water. All right.
That is cool.
There's our other rod and reel. It also comes with 4 artificial worms that you can use on your hook to get the fish to come take a bite. See if we can open it up and see what we find in here. Oh, good. See that? So we would want to hang that off of the hook on our fishing line. Put that down in the water, and I bet a big old bass will come by and snatch it up. I hope that's a mess. If you've ever gone fishing and you have a picture of a fish that you caught, be sure to send it to us on Facebook.
Okay, I wanted to show you my little fish down in the water. We're going to pretend like this is the Sea of Galilee. That's going to be the Sea of Galilee with the fish in it. And one time, we'll put a sailboat down in the water too. Let me put the sail in it. People wanted to come around and hear Jesus. See the sail, and the wind makes the boat blow back and forth. And Jesus' helpers would sit in the boat and they would catch fish in the net. And one night they put the net in the water. They tried all night long and they never caught any fish. And Jesus said, go back and I want you to cast your net on the other side. And they said, we've tried, we can't catch anything. And so that time, they pulled their net up, and it was so full of fish that when they put the fish in the boat started to sink down into the water. Was that a miracle? How did they know? How did Jesus know where to tell them to cast their nets? He knew everything. And then they knew he was a special person to follow. And he got more and more followers. He probably had a bigger boat to keep all of his friends in. This will be Jesus tonight. I'll put him right here. Let's count his 12 friends. Let's see if we can count them. 1, maybe that's Peter. Do you think that's Peter? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Look at that one. 8, 9, 10. More than 10 friends. 11 and 12. So he had 3 friends, and now look how many friends he has. They are called his disciples. Can you say that? Disciples. And they spend a lot of time out on the Sea of Galilee, I bet. Don't you, Mr. David?
Uh-huh.
Being tossed around by the wind. We have several more stories on the seashore. We'll be talking about that for a while. Let's see if we can make some boats float. Do you have any little boats for your bathtub at home? I think these, what kind of boats are these? They're not sailboats, are they?
Those may be tugboats.
Tugboats. Let's count the boats. You want to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you were in class, I would let you blow the boats back and forth. Let's see if we can make these sailboats float. This says, Jesus loves me. Let's see if it'll float. Yes, it does. Let's put 3 of those in there. Mr. David, you want to try to blow them from your side back this way? Oh, the sails are making them sail. Look at that. Mr. David blew it all the way to there. That one went all the way to that end, didn't it? Good job. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3. Tonight, Mr. David and I are at Bible class, and we haven't had any supper. So I thought we would eat some fish like Jesus and his friends, his disciples. And I thought I'd put a few Swedish fish in his bowl. Have you ever had Swedish fish, Mr. David?
Yes.
I've never tasted one. Put a few for Miss Cheryl. See all those little fish? And then I also have some goldfish crackers. If you have some goldfish at home, maybe you can eat some too. And remember our story about the Sea of Galilee and Jesus finding friends. There's some for Mr. David, and there's some for Miss Cheryl. Okay, and for Mr. David's, I think I'm going to put a little fishing pole so he can fish for his. How does that look? Is that a good snack for tonight? So maybe this week, if you have fish crackers at home, you can play like you're fishing with a fish net too. Do you remember this story last time about Jesus in the temple listening to the teachers? He probably went to the synagogue almost every week and learned more and more. And there, you see that little scroll down there that we talked about? There he is when he grew up, and he's starting to tell people about God. When he was a man, he was a teacher too. And there are the friends that we were talking about. Jesus got in the boat. Do you see that? You see that picture too? All those fish. Jesus knew where to tell them to fish. They had been in the wrong spot. But then after that, they knew he was a good friend. They caught more fish than the nets could hold. Jesus said, I can show you how to gather people, not just fish in nets. Come follow me. Can you say that? Come follow me. And there are all 12 of his friends. I like this book. That's just part of it, but that's a book that I've had a long time. Jesus and the Fisherman. We'll talk more about that later.
Peter, James, and John in a sailboat. Peter, James, and John in a sailboat. Peter, James, and John in a sailboat out on the deep blue sea. They fished all night, but they caught no fishes. They fished all night, but they caught no fishes. Fished all night, but they caught no fishes out on the deep blue sea. Along came Jesus walking on the seashore. Along came Jesus walking on the seashore. Along came Jesus walking on the seashore out on the deep blue sea. Cast your nets on the other side. Cast your nets on the other side. Cast your nets on the other side out on the deep blue sea. Then their nets were full of fishes. Then their nets were full of fishes. Then their nets were full of fishes out on the deep blue sea. Picking up fishes, putting them in the sailboat. Picking up fishes, putting them in the sailboat. Picking up fishes, putting them in the sailboat out on the deep blue sea.